The craft beer industry is very quirky.
Yeah,
they're very collegial. It's a tight knit community. Yeah. They can sniff out somebody who doesn't know what they're doing a mile away.
Hey there, Amanda here, and welcome to episode 93 of Great Beer Adventure. We are headed back to Orlando for our last long episode that was recorded there. Eventually you have to come home, right? We do have a couple of brewery bios that I gathered while I was down there, and those will be coming to you in the next coming weeks. Today, we are going to be chatting about the power beer has to bring people together with my buddy, Steve Schmidt. Hey everybody, I am still in Florida. That's right. I have been here for a few days now, and each of the days that I've been here, I have done another episode at the wonderful Caribe Royale. And, I had one more person I really, really wanted to talk to. So, Steve Schmidt, thank you so much for coming on Great Beer Adventure.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
I love your show.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. Let's quickly let the audience know, in a little brief bio, who you are.
Okay, my name is Steve Schmidt, and I am also a beer podcaster. And my podcast is called Market the Brew, and it's a podcast about marketing craft beer. There's 5,000 craft breweries throughout the U.S., and they all got to go to market. They're all trying to attract an audience and regular customers to their tap room, and
right.
And they're doing a lot of interesting things. So what I do is I interview the brewers on the cool stuff that they're doing, the interesting promotions they're running, and the really great marketing, effective marketing strategies that they're doing in their local markets.
So I guess it would have been 2 weeks ago when this show comes out, but the episode that I recorded yesterday, it's funny how time works in podcasting world. I spoke to Marty McDonald, and Marty told us some specifics about social media and how to do that. But your marketing angle is not specifically like one thing. I love how on your show actually like kind of looks for those like, I feel like media stunts is a dirty word, but kind of like those really cool promotions, and you bring them all in and you bring them all to the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that's interesting, something that has drama that's going to attract attention. And with 5,000 breweries out there, there's a lot of noise, a lot of people competing for that attention. So you got to do some, you can call them stunts, and that's probably somewhat accurate, but you got to do something that's kind of fun and interesting, out of the box, different. To really attract attention.
Right, you got to figure out a way to break through the clutter and the noise that is happening, because there's a lot of breweries out there. Mm-hmm. In Portland, Maine, where I'm from, within Portland city limits, not outside, not South Portland, just in city limits, there are over a dozen breweries.
Wow.
And you go to the other Portland, and that's like, what? Not even a drop in a bucket, a dozen breweries. It's crazy out there. So, you got to find some way to really make some noise that people can hear above the rest.
And then what did Nick from Inoculum Ale Works tell us the other day? There's 215 craft breweries in Florida, with another 30 in planning?
Yeah, somebody just asked me, and I was like, oh my goodness, somebody just told me this. I know it, and I couldn't remember. But so Inoculum, it was also on the show as well, or will be on the show next week. I don't know how it's all going to... You guys, I'm sitting here, it's been a few days, there's been beers that have been had, and there's a lot of talking. Talking when you're really excited about what you do and you talk to people, that is exhausting. I am really tired right now. So let's get right into the episode. Guys, we're still at the Caribe. The beer selection still is not stellar. So guess what? We're having Funky Buddhas again today. This time we're going to tell you a little bit about the caps, though, because those are quite interesting. You want to go for that?
Mine says, "Your moment of Zen." So under each crown, they have, Funky Buddha always has some little saying, and mine is, "Your moment of Zen."
Nice. Is this your moment of Zen right now?
It is.
Right?
It is. Beer.
Sharing
beer with you is always a moment of Zen for me.
Aw, thanks, Steve. Now, mine is really funny. I opened it up and I saw it and I was like, oh, we're at a podcasting conference. This is just too perfect. There's a message that everybody says to podcasters, new podcasters, and it's always just start. Just press record and go. And my cab said, start now. So we're going to start now with this podcast, and we are going to, and that is also a message for every new podcaster in here. Make sure you start now, folks. Don't wait. So we talked about the Hefeweizen on the last episode. It's still just as wonderful, but I don't really think we need to dive deep into it, seeing this is the second time in as many days.
So you've had this one already?
I have, yeah. I hunted down good beers here, and there is one on draft out at the beach, out of the pool bar, and there's this one. There's a Sweetwater one in there as well.
Which was it?
The Free Dive.
Free Dive, yeah.
Yeah, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only beers, unless you are at my hotel room or Marty's hotel room, that are any good in this entire hotel that we've been able to find.
Do you like Hefeweizen as a style?
I do like Hefeweizen.
And do you like this one in particular?
This is a pretty good one.
It's a delightful little...
Yeah. Delightful. It's a great word.
And it's Hefeweizen's a great style for Florida, too.
Yes.
Because it's refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go into round two. Normally we spend a little bit of time, but I feel like you guys at home... You were here. We did this yesterday or 2 weeks ago, however you want to look at it. So let's just move right into our second round. And in this round, I really want to talk about, the power beer has to bring people together. So you and I met, Steve, through a very interesting little connection. And I'm saying that a little bit punny for a particular reason. So you were at, I believe, Podcast Movement Chicago.
Correct.
My now boss, Jessica Rhodes, was there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Jessica and I had talked before about the fact that I was a beer podcaster and that I was interested in working with her. And the timing just wasn't right at that point, pre-Podcast Movement. And so then she goes and she meets you, and you signed up with her.
Yes, but not immediately.
Not immediately. So was it a little bit it was close though,
couple months later.
Okay,
I kind of hit the wall. My first half dozen episodes were people I had met and brewers I already knew. So I filled up 6 episodes really quick and then hit the wall and cried help to Jessica.
Help me, please. And so Jessica's like, oh my goodness, I have the perfect person. We had talked about me working with her. I do beer stuff. And she's like, Amanda, the skies opened up and they said, this is the time for Amanda to join the team. And I joined the team because you joined Interview Connections.
And really the fact that Jessica said she had somebody that already had a beer podcast really helped me get over the hump to join, because I was really nervous about having someone else try to book my appointments, because the craft beer industry is very quirky.
Yeah,
they're very collegial. It's a tight knit community. Yeah. They can sniff out somebody who doesn't know what they're doing a mile away.
You don't really like beer, and I just I get super passionate about it, and it's just amazing that between Rhode Island, where Jess is, Chicago, where you guys met, and Maine, where I live, we were, and then where were you living? You weren't living in Chicago.
I was living in Chicago at the time.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So the 3 of us in 3 different places, somehow it brings us all together, so that now I get to work with you, and we've had some amazing conversations, and I've gotten a bunch of people to come on your show,
right?
And then you moved.
I did.
You did. You moved in the middle of a hurricane.
I did.
Right?
Yes, right, exactly.
Right? You're like, you know what? This Chicago thing's not really working out for me. I'm going to move to Florida, but I'm going to wait until there's a giant hurricane down there.
Mm-hmm. Well,
what?
Want it to be memorable.
Right. Make it exciting. So you paused at that point, but then you came back online, and we found out that Podfest was happening in Orlando, and you're down here in Florida, and... I'm like, listen, Steve, we have got to buy a drink. You're like, yeah, I'm going to Podfest. We're going to make this happen. And then, as it's happening, you found that Inoculum was having a beer release.
Bottle release, yeah. Dreamcatcher.
The Dreamcatcher, yes.
And you and I had never met in person.
Never.
And you told me about Podfest. I hadn't heard about it until you had mentioned it today. Are you going to this?
Yeah. And so we decided that we would go beer together. And I am just so thankful. I was supposed to come in and not get here until 5:00 on Wednesday night, but I was like, I'm gonna change it so I come in on Tuesday so that we can go. And we did.
We did. We had a blast. And we visited breweries. We visited a bottle shop.
Yeah. And I think that it's just really powerful so people that don't drink beer don't really understand.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
They just think you're drinking to get intoxicated.
And some people do that.
Are, right? Sometimes that is the whole thing.
With a 13 ABV, sometimes it's...
sometimes it just happens. But really, that's not... I don't know. For me, that's not it.
It's not the focus.
No. I think that beer is magical. I think it gives you this amazing opportunity to... I feel like there's an evolution in conversation when you're having a beer. First, you sit down, you're like, oh, hey, what are you drinking? Oh, this one is from this little brewery from over here. This is what it tastes like. You want a sip, and then you're like, what are you drinking? And then you explain it, and then you start talking about other things, and you get to really know somebody just sitting there. And, it becomes more than the beer, but the beer I really feel like is this bridge.
I agree. And... the first time I experienced it, I thought it was kind of weird, but then it becomes normal quick. But the first time you're at a beer fest and you're talking to a complete stranger and you guys are swapping glasses and drinking out of glasses that the other person's already drank out of.
I know. It's ridiculous. Germs, or you're just like, at home. Oh,
alcohol
germs,
will kill the germs,
can't do
right?
it. Right. And then you get to a beer fest and you're like, no, try this one. And you're like, okay.
Oh, you got to try this.
Right. You got to try it. And it's just, I just really feel like why I do this show is to find out people's stories.
That's what I love, the stories.
Yeah. And I just think that.
I just love the stories.
And they just come so much more smoothly.
Like Richard from Dead Lizard Brewing Company. He's a third-generation brewer. And Nick, too, from Inoculum. He's a second-generation.
Yeah. That is just...
Those are great stories.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me. Like, it gives you a reason to talk to people. A beer in one hand, a mic in the other. I can talk to anyone. Mm-hmm. I have so many friends at this podcast conference because I brought a cooler full of beer.
And everybody knows you.
Right.
Oh, do you know Amanda, the beer girl?
Yeah, exactly. It's, I kind of am cheating because I'm like, hey, guys, I have beer, be my friend, right? But at the same time, it's like, hey, guys, I have this really great beer. I need to tell you about it. I never just hand out beer. It's like, okay, so this beer is by Rising Tide. It's this really great brewery that's up there. They were named after the quote, Rising Tide lifts all ships, and they really believe in it. And go into, like, all these different beers that they do. And, oh, wait, you got to hear about this one with that. It has seawater in it. And it just really... For me, it's about relationships, education, connecting. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
And brewers, too, they love to share, don't they?
They do. If you are truly, truly interested and curious about what they're doing, they'll share with you. Mm-hmm. If you're just like, hey, dude, what hops are in this IPA here? They're going to be like, oh, Citra, Mm-hmm. But if you're like, tell me about this and, like, tell them, get them really fired up about it, too, they're going to open up and they're going to...
And it's kind of a vulnerable moment for them, I've noticed, because, you cook a good meal, or my wife cooks a good meal for me, and the minute you take that first bite, they're looking at you like,
what do you think?
Like it? What do you think?
Yeah.
And brewers are the same way.
Yeah.
You have that first sip of their beer, and they're like,
how's it? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that brings me to a different point completely. Untapped, it's a great little app that you can go in there and you can keep track of it. And I understand that some people use Untapped to kind of just keep track of, like, I like this beer, I didn't like this beer, or whatever. But what they don't know, some people do know and don't care, is the brewers get those. And so if you're like, 1 star, it tasted like IPA. It was an IPA, right? I don't like IPAs. Well, then don't drink it. If you're finding that you don't like IPAs, maybe you don't rate those ones on Untapped. Mm-hmm. Because it's just like...
And a lot of the brewers do. They do Untapped really closely because that's their market research. That's how they know what people... How they're perceiving their product in the marketplace. And I've been thinking we should talk to them because that might be a good episode for Market the Brew.
There you go. Right. We'll put this down. We got to get them on.
Add it to the list.
I'll add it onto the list. It's true, though. That would be a good story. And the brewers really, really pay attention to what's being said. And too often people just don't think about, like, what they're actually writing. If you don't, like, my personal belief is if you don't like IPAs, you can check it in if you want to, if you tried it. But don't necessarily rate it because you're throwing things off for other people that are looking at it. Mm-hmm. If you like a stout, like if you like stouts and you drink a stout and you're like, oh, no, there's an off flavor, well, that's something different, right? Mm-hmm. If you like IPAs and there's an off flavor, if you like IPAs but it's not a very good one, that's a different story. But if it's like 1 star. I don't like IPAs. Well, that's your own fault, dummy.
Right.
Like, yeah, stay off the platform for those purposes.
Yes, exactly. That's not useful feedback. That's an opinion based on personal preference. It's not an assessment.
All of them really are. Like, no matter what. Like, if,
that's true.
You know, like, I could be like, oh, no, like, the coffee was just way out of balance. But if you really love coffee, you could be like, no, this was perfect. So it is all based on personal preference.
Right.
But
like, to me, this coconut tastes like
suntan lotion.
Suntan lotion.
Yeah. But at the same time, you just really, like, you can't just bash somebody because you're like, I don't like it. Mm-hmm. Then you become a 2-year-old.
Right.
And we leave them at home when we want to have any kind of serious drinks. Like, yeah. This is a whole different rant than I actually meant to go on, but it drives me nuts. My poor, like, I feel so bad when, like, brewers, like, look at it and they're just like, oh my God,
I got footballed on this thing. And it's like, well...
Yeah,
you got to read the comments.
Yeah, you gotta look. Oh wait, it's just a dummy.
I hate IPAs.
I hate IPAs.
Yeah, I can't throw that one out.
But back to meeting people over beers. I think that it is really good. As I don't want to say young kid because that's not quite right. I'm 35, and so like as a young drinker, so early 20s and whatever, 21, 22. Going to a bar, never ever ever could pick up somebody at a bar because everybody's just so stupid. But like as a more adult drinker, I can imagine like going and striking up conversations and finding friends, or if I wasn't married, like finding people to actually talk to, because a beer, not a Mai Tai, are going to have some intricacies that are different, and there definitely is a space to start conversations.
When I lived in Chicago, I was a block from a really great brew pub. And so I'd go there by myself. I'd just walk up to have a beer, 2 beers. And it was surprising like how many of my neighbors I met at the brew pub that I hadn't met anywhere else. And it's so easy to just have people are so open in brew pubs and tap rooms. There's, I think, a defensive nature when you're in a bar or a nightclub, especially if it's a younger crowd. But at tap rooms and brew pubs, I find people are there to meet other people and have conversation.
Agreed. And I think that's a really good point. I don't know very many of my neighbors, like at all. And we
need a tap room.
Right. And that's exactly it. It's like we do have one that just came in recently, and I'm taking a picture. So you do a lot of picture taking and social mediaing at these kind of events. But we have one, and I've met some of the people that are like last summer, because everything's cold in the Maine winter, and I like to hibernate. So last summer, before my little one went to kindergarten, we actually met some of the parents of her kindergarten classmates, because we were all at the brew pub together. And it was actually really nice to be able to, make those little connections beforehand and be like, oh, hey, yeah, it was really nice seeing you this summer. And it made it less awkward for her, and it made it less awkward for us on that first day of school when we all had somebody to talk to. It was good. I think it's like the adult playground almost, where you get to like go find somebody new to play with, the
magic communal nature of
exactly the magic
malt beverage.
Precisely. Okay, so let's move right into. Was there anything else that we should talk about before we go on?
Not that I can think of, but
no?
I'm sure it'll come up. Yep.
Okay, if it comes up, bring it up. If
right.
it doesn't, we'll just keep going.
Right.
All right. Round 3 is always the same. Mm-hmm. And round 3 is, what is your first beer memory?
Well, I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and at the time, Milwaukee was the beer capital of the world. And my dad had this old refrigerator that he found, and he put it in the basement, and what he did is he drilled a hole in the side, put a tap in
what a good
with a CO2 cartridge, and the old quarter barrel. So he'd get an old quarter barrel of Pabst Blue Ribbon beer.
Okay, it was going well. So PBR.
So I was weaned on PBR. So he'd be up working, or my mom would be watching TV, and they didn't want to walk down to the basement and get their own beer. They'd call one of us kids, Steve, come here. Go fill up my beer. Nice. So you go fill up the beer, and you'd look around. No one was, no one was around. None of your siblings were there to tattle on you. You could suck the foam off the top.
Oh, but the foam's not good.
When you're
when you're a kid,
10 years old.
Well, at least you were just drinking foam.
But by the time I was 12, my father had taught all of us how to tap a beer, how to put the glass at an angle so there wasn't a lot of foam.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So that was my first beer memory. My first craft beer memory was Sprecher Brewing Company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the early 80s, like 82, I think, was the first time I had Sprecher Amber. And this was before Blue Moon came out with the orange slice.
Oh, right.
Sprecher Amber always had a lemon slice. And I thought that was the strangest thing in the world. But it really made a difference. It really did something to the flavor. And then, Corona came later with the limes, and then Blue Moon with the orange.
Now you got the citrus trio right there, right?
Exactly.
Perfect. Yeah, now, being taught how to pour beer at such a young age, did you ever do any bartending or anything?
I didn't.
You didn't? That would have been an easy career for you to get into.
It would have, yep.
Yeah, you missed that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I spent way too much time on the other side.
Okay, noted. I gotcha. I hear you. Okay, fourth and final round.
Okay.
All right. Other than the citrus trio, okay, what type of fruit do you think belongs in beer?
Boy. Other than citrus?
Yeah, we got to stay away from the citrus trio. We already talked about them.
I know the one beer was a little heavy on that coconut flavor. And coconut is a fruit, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
We're gonna put it in the fruit category at least.
I like coconut.
Yeah.
Yep.
So do you really enjoy coconut? And have you ever had it in anything other than a stout?
I don't think so. I think it's always been a stout. Never had it in anything lighter.
Yeah, it's really interesting because
that I can think of. Like coffee, I think it kind of lends itself to more of a darker beer.
It does, but I have had some coffee ones with...
Revolution had a
there was
lighter beer that really had a powerful coffee flavor.
There are
it was like drinking a cup of coffee.
Right.
It was cool.
There's some beers that can be done with coffee, so I didn't know if you had ever come across any that were coconut without it.
Not
we should
yet.
do some research on that.
Mm-hmm. Hefeweizen doesn't have banana in it, but it does have that, depending on how it's brewed, has that clove banana flavor.
I really enjoy watermelon rind, that flavor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like watermelon.
Right. You like the rind.
The rind flavor. I enjoy that.
It's a little less sweet, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if blueberries are done correctly, that is not always the case.
Right.
Sometimes growing up, we used to have like blueberries, but they had like the powder blueberries in the pancake mix.
Mm-hmm.
And some beers to me have that flavor.
Yep, have that.
It's like a
powdered flavor.
Yeah, like a chalky blueberry thing. But if they're done correctly, then I like blueberry as well.
I tell you, I don't like strawberry, but I do like raspberry. That Founder's Radius.
Yep.
Is a spectacular beer.
I think it needs to be done correctly, and then fruit can really sing in beer.
Right. So, one of the breweries down here in Vero Beach, Florida, is called Orchid Island, and they are known for their grapefruit. They get the local grapefruit, and it's called Ruby Red. And they have a spectacular IPA that's got that grapefruit, but it has that real grapefruit flavor to it.
Yeah.
Not so much like Ballast.
Yeah, Ballast.
Points.
They
kind of popularized it, but...
Have they changed their flavoring a
little bit? I don't know. Someone told me that it's artificial flavor, but I don't know. I don't know that much about Ballast Point, but I do know that Orchid Island and Vero Beach, that Ruby Red is spectacular. Yeah. All
right, we should go see if we can hunt any of that down.
And there's one more if you want to hear another citrus.
Let's do it.
I don't know the name of the fruit, but I was at a winter beer festival in Chicago last winter, and Five Rabbits in Chicago had this citrus fruit from Colombia that was spectacular.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I wonder what kind of fruit that
Fruited
is.
beer, yeah.
All right, so we just gave our show note writer a task. Task number 1, we're going to set this up for you. You have to go to the show notes to find the answer. So task number 1. Has there ever been any beer other than a dark, either porter or stout, that has had coconut in it? We need to know that. And number 2, did you say Brazil? Is that where the citrus was from?
Colombia, I believe.
Colombia. What is a Colombia citrus that might be in beer? We need those two questions answered over on the show notes. Justin does a great job with those, so make sure that you check those out. Before we wrap up, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and your podcast?
Sure. You can find the podcast at marketthebrew.com.
Is it marketthebrew.com or the Market the Brew?
It's marketthebrew.com, and it's got to be 2 T's, otherwise you're going to get Market Hebrew, and you want Market the Brew.
Market the Brew.
Marketthebrew.com. Yep. That's where you can find the podcast, or, of course, we're at Market the Brew in iTunes. And you can find us on social media at Facebook, Market the Brew, and on Instagram and Twitter at Market the Brew.
Wonderful. Market the Brew everywhere you go.
Market the Brew everywhere you go.
Perfect. Make sure you look for Steve and listen to all that he has to say. Jim O'Brien from our show, way back when we talked about the distribution game with him, and you actually had him on your show as well.
Jim was fantastic.
Yes.
He's doing remarkable things.
They really, really are.
Mm-hmm.
So, folks, make sure you go find Steve, find Jim over there, and hit Steve up on your favorite social media platform. Thank you so much, Steve, for coming and taking me to beering all over Orlando and sitting down and sharing with me a beer here on the last day of Podfest.
Well, you're so welcome, and thanks for having me on the show. I can check that off my bucket list. I had to get on this show.
Absolutely. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Thank you to Steve for chatting with me. And if you are a brewer interested in how to market your brew, be sure to check out his podcast. For links, head over to greatbeeradventure.com/podcast. Recently, I have received a couple of emails from folks telling me their adventures and also sharing words of encouragement. I want to say thank you to Eric, Edward, and Stephen for those amazing emails, and I really appreciate it. Also, a big thank you to Scott for sharing one of his home brews with me. I haven't got a chance to try it yet because I'm a little intimidated that there's peppers in there, but I will get there, and I will try it, and I will report back. But until then, I'm just nervous. Also, a big thank you to Heather from Craft Lit. It is a podcast as well. Make sure you go check that out. She sent me some beer chocolates from her trip to Brussels, which is ever so kind of her. If anyone would like to reach out, feel free to drop a line to hi@greatbeeradventure.com. I'll see you next week to learn about another fabulous brewery. Until then, get out there and try something new. Chat soon, friend.